Successive sessions of Nigeria's National Assembly have at various times attempted to tinker with the 1999 Constitution owing to the persistent clamor by Nigerians to have a more people-oriented body of laws. Each effort by the lawmakers has either ended in resignation or inability to form a consensus around the critical issues on both the concurrent and executive list. Who gets what and in what quantity among the three tiers of government in Nigeria? Some have actually accused the National Assembly of outright selfishness and insensitivity because of the humongous financial allocations appropriated to themselves by the lawmakers. Well, a former member of the House of Representatives, Honorable Sam Onuigbo, joins us now to look at a fresh bid to reform the 1999 Constitution, what manner of reform that Nigeria needs, and how to end the quadrennial exercise of constitution review by a total overhaul in order to save money. Many thanks for joining us on Newsday.
Thank you very much indeed.
All right, then, if we could just go straight into my first question. Now, there has been this push for, we'll say some argue for the overall overhaul of the Constitution, while some advocate for targeted amendments. There's the issue of resource allocation, revenue sharing, and even fiscal federalism. What is your stance on this matter, and what approach do you believe, as a former House of Representatives member yourself, what approach do you believe will yield a more effective and lasting reform? What best addresses the concerns of different regions and promotes a national development as regards the Constitution?
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. We already have the 1999 Constitution with which we are running our democratic system. And it's been with us, and we've been putting it into operation since 1999. Yes, there are some areas, some gray areas that actually have raised a lot of concerns. But at the same time, we have made some positive improvements in trying to amend the Constitution. Some of these were very successful. I can cite one or two examples for you right now that were changes made. For instance, the issue about how a governor, or the president, when he's going on vacation and all that, transfers power, especially what happened before our late president died and after he died, which led to doctrine of necessity. So the Constitution had to be amended to make sure that we don't go through that kind of experience again. Yes, it's a concern that we're doing this in piecemeal, but it allows us to continue to go ahead while making those changes. You refer to some concern that perhaps there's some, selfish approach or insensitivity on the part of National Assembly. That's why they allow this to come up every new session. It's not entirely correct, because I remember that in the 6th Assembly, National Assembly worked very hard to ensure that autonomy was granted to state houses of assembly. And initially it passed. But later on, due to pressure from the governors, the about two years, houses of assembly, the speakers came back and said, they wanted to make an amendment. So that way, you're not going to blame the National Assembly. You see, that was how it failed. So we will continue with the changes that we are making. And but we have to be fair and honest about it. And some of these changes must be far-reaching. For instance, the National Assembly just came up with changes they want to make to Section 124, Subsection 3, regarding state independent electoral commissions, so as to ensure that that INEC conducts the election for the election to the 774 local governments. And I share with them in their concern. And I appreciate that, because when we were working on the Electoral Act 2022, we argued over this because I represented the Southeast in the Joint Technical Committee of the National Assembly, where we had a final clause-by-clause consideration. We argued on it and we agreed that we should put in the Electoral Act, in Section 51, subsection 3, that elections to local governments that are not conducted in line with the provisions of this Act shall be invalid. So it means that if we were able to do this as far back as 2022, and they have come up with it now, it means this is a nagging problem that needs to be addressed. Why? It's because a lot of money goes to the 774 local governments. And when this money goes there, these local government chairmen, to a very large extent, are not independent. Because I remember that in 1997, 1998, when I did a study on local government administration, we saw that to some extent they were somehow independent. But between 1999 and 2002, 2003, when Algon, went into full force trying to assert their independence, their powers were watered down, such that today, local government, the 774 local governments, apart from a few, maybe some of them in Lagos and maybe one or two there, here and there, these local governments are no longer doing what they were set up to do by Section 7 of the Constitution. They are just places where money from Federation account allocation committee is sent down and the money disappears. I was a former commissioner, so I know what I'm talking about. So it's important that we work towards this, make critical amendments, and ensure that
If you'll allow me to just interject at that point, because I'm glad that you used the local government, the LGAs, as a demonstrative point. Now, it almost seems like a chicken and egg situation because, there's blame being shifted to the local government at the state level, the subnational level, stating that, this is where the rules are being flouted or this is where the loopholes are. But someone might argue that, well, does it not mean that the House of Reps are not making comprehensive changes? You also mentioned the Electoral Act. We saw all that transpired after the election. One of the key sticking issues is the fact that those bills that are making it to the amendment phase are not being done so comprehensively. Whose interest does that serve, and why, so many years after 1999, is this still a sticking issue?
Well, thank you very much indeed for interjecting. The point still remains that we need to have a very clear understanding of what plays out there. I refer to 1997, and I said I did a study on local government. And I also brought it forward to 1999 to 2002, 2003. By 1999, 2002, 2003, local government chairmen, our local governments in different states were to a large extent, very effective and productive, such that local government chairmen were embarking on small road construction, electricity projects, and construction of markets. But today, the point I'm making and which I'm emphasizing is that today, it is not the same thing. Local governments now almost exist on paper. In most of the local governments today, the local government chairman, councillors, and a few of them only gather when the allocation has come. And the point I'm stressing is that most of these allocations or most of the money that they are using comes straight from the Federation account, except for some of them that have power to use their internally generated revenue to raise money. Question, so why should someone appointed, but they call it election because you discover that in all the states, the party in power wins all the local government chairmanship seats and councillors. They were appointed. So why is it that somebody who is appointed, or you say elected in quotes, by the state government is the one administering the resources coming from the Federation account? And that's why it's important for me to stress right here that as soon as we are able to get the local government system working, engaging the youths at the local government base, we will be able to solve a lot of the challenges that we're having. Unemployment, security, and all that. And again, development. Check why a local government is set up. If you read Section 7 of the Constitution, and then you go further down, you discover that they're supposed to be engaged in development plan and all that for their areas. I have been involved in politics for this number of years you mentioned, and I know. In fact, in one instance, let me give you a shocking instance. In 2020, there was a local government election in Abia State, and we had people, in groups. Just because they believed that, this group that won did not belong to us, they changed the result overnight and created forms for a party that was not in contention, that never contested, and these were the winners of the election. On the day of swearing in, they all moved over to the party that made that magic. It's on record. So we need to address the challenges coming from the local government council. If we can do that, I know that with the political sagacity of Mr. President going forward, somewhere along the line, I have no doubt whatsoever that we'll be able to call the governors together and have a conversation with them. Maybe citing the fact that he too was a governor and today he's president. And if we all can work together to preserve the polity, the governors, one of them eventually in the future, when Mr. President serves out his term, will again become president. But if they allow things to crack open by not allowing the local government to function, to engage the masses, to reduce unemployment, to start using resources coming from the federal government in a transparent, judicious and productive manner, then we are running some funny risk. And I know that Mr. President will be able to address that, but because he has to make it clear to them.
Okay. I'm very glad that you actually mentioned security, because that was going to be my next question. Some argue that, of course, that the Constitution should be a living document that adapts to societal changes. And the issue of state police often arises during constitutional reviews. Now, with the current state of insecurity in Nigeria, what is your perspective of the establishment of state police, and how can this be balanced with national security concerns, as regards the Constitution, of course?
Well, thank you for bringing out that aspect, which is, the area, the current challenge that we're having today. I think that from the responses that we are getting from different meetings, for gatherings of Nigerians, I think everyone is gradually coming to terms with the fact that we will need state police somewhere along the line as we are going. But it is also important to put in place checks to avoid abuses. I just referred to what is going on with the local governments right now, which we have all witnessed. I did not manufacture it. It's a life situation. So we will work towards that, because we operate in a federal system of government where you talk about the local government, the states, the federal government. I'm sure that the security situation we're experiencing in the country right now truly begs for, solutions to be found here and there. So the issue of state police, I do not think that it's going to take too long before we get into that. But again, there must be we have to find some kind of security net or some kind of guardrails to make sure that it is not a free-for-all. Because if you go back to our history, I remember what the Native Authority Police did in those days and all that. It calls for caution, but indeed, it's something that I think that we need going forward.
Former Member House of Reps as Honorable Sam Onuigbo, thank you so much for your time today and your insights on this topic. It's been truly enjoyable. Thank you.